Hello everyone, welcome back to Edison School of Law. In this episode, we'll be looking at an important but often misunderstood topic: enforcement of judgments and what it really means in Nigeria and UK and how it works. You will learn how court decisions are turned into real practical outcomes. We'll explain who can enforce a judgment, when enforcement begins, and the lawful methods used to compel compliance, so you understand how winning a case actually leads to results. Part A: Enforcement of judgment in Nigeria. What is enforcement of judgment in Nigeria? Enforcement of judgment refers to the legal steps taken to ensure that a court's decision is actually carried out. Once a Nigerian court delivers a judgment, ruling, or order, the successful party has the right to ensure compliance. The law does nothing in vain. Judgments are meant to be obeyed, not ignored. In this discussion, we are focusing mainly on civil judgment enforcement. Question: which laws regulate enforcement of judgment in Nigeria? Two major laws regulate judgment enforcement in Nigeria. These are the Sheriffs and Civil Process Acts and the judgment enforcement rules after judgment is delivered. The winning party becomes the judgment creditor, while the losing party becomes the judgment debtor. When does a judgment take effect in Nigeria? A judgment generally takes effect immediately upon delivery, unless the court states otherwise. For example, the court may order payment within 30 days or possession of land within 3 months. If the judgment debtor fails to comply within the time given, enforcement may begin. Where can judgment be enforced in Nigeria? Where can judgment be enforced in Nigeria? Money judgments become enforceable 3 days after delivery, unless the court directs otherwise. Judgments for possession of land usually take effect 14 days after delivery. Enforcement can only be carried out between 6 a.m. and 6 p.m. and on court days, generally Monday to Saturday, excluding Sundays and public holidays. Is there a time limit for enforcing judgments in Nigeria? Yes, there is a time limit for doing that. A writ of execution lasts 1 year and must be renewed if it expires. Enforcement processes should generally be initiated within 2 years of judgment. If more than 2 years have passed, the judgment creditor must obtain leave of court and explain the delay. However, judgments against government institutions may be enforced within 6 years without leave. Most of enforcing money judgments in Nigeria. What are the main ways to enforce money judgments in Nigeria? In Nigeria recognizes 3 major methods. 1. Writ of fieri facere, called FIFA. This allows the seizure and sale of the debtor's movable property, such as vehicles or equipment. Execution against immovable property. This involves attaching and selling the debtor's land or buildings to satisfy the judgment debt. Garnishee proceedings. This is used to attach money in the debtor's bank account or in the hands of a third party. How are attached properties sold in Nigeria? Movable property is usually sold 5 days after attachment. Immovable properties may be sold after 15 days. Perishable goods may be sold earlier. The proceeds are applied in this order: 1. Auctioneer's fee. 2. Sheriff and court expenses. 3. Judgment creditor. Any balance is returned to the debtor. The court will never take more than what is necessary to satisfy the judgment. Enforcement of non-monetary judgments in Nigeria. How are non-monetary judgments enforced? Non-monetary judgments are enforced through specific court processes, including the following: A. Recovery of land by writ of possession. B. Delivery of goods by writ of delivery. Landlord and tenant matters by a warrant of possession. Where rent arrears exist, a landlord may also use FIFA to seize the tenant's movable property. Judgment summons and sequestration. What is a judgment summons in Nigeria? In Nigeria, a judgment summons is used where a debtor refuses to pay despite having the means. The debtor is summoned to court and examined on their finances. The court may then order payment by installments or attachment of property or committal to prison, as well as release upon payment. What is a writ of sequestration? If a debtor still refuses to comply after committal, the court may issue a writ of sequestration. A writ of sequestration allows appointed commissioners to manage the debtor's immovable property, such as rental buildings, and use the income to satisfy the judgment. Ownership does not change, only management. Interstate enforcement in Nigeria. Can a Nigerian judgment be enforced in another state within the country? The answer is yes. Under the Nigerian Constitution 1999 as amended, judgments can be enforced anywhere within the Federation of Nigeria. The registrar issues a writ of execution and Form 11 warrant, which are transmitted to the receiving state for enforcement under the Sheriffs and Civil Process Act. Part B. Enforcement of judgment in the UK. What is enforcement of judgment in the UK? Enforcement of judgment in the UK refers to the legal steps a successful party takes to ensure that a court's decision is actually obeyed. Winning a case does not automatically guarantee payment or compliance. If the losing party fails to comply voluntarily, the law provides formal enforcement mechanisms. Who are the parties after judgment in the UK? Once judgment is delivered, the winning party becomes the judgment creditor, while the losing party becomes the judgment debtor. These terms apply across civil enforcement procedures in England and Wales. When does the UK judgment take effect? When does the UK judgment take effect? Most civil judgments in the UK take effect immediately unless the court specifies otherwise. If the time given for compliance expires without action, enforcement may begin. Which rules govern enforcement of judgments in the UK? Which rules govern the enforcement of judgment in the UK? Enforcement in England and Wales is governed mainly by the Civil Procedure Rules (CPR). Enforcement is carried out through the courts and authorized enforcement officers to ensure fairness and legality. What are the main methods of enforcing judgments in the UK? Common enforcement methods include the following: warrant or writ of control, attachment of earnings order, third party debt orders, charging orders, orders for possession. The method used depends on the nature of the judgment and the debtor's assets. What does the UK court consider during enforcement? The court focuses on fairness and proportionality. Enforcement must ensure compliance without causing unnecessary hardship or injustice. In conclusion, in summary, enforcement of judgment, whether in Nigeria or the UK, is the process that turns a court's decision from paper into practice. If you enjoyed this video, please comment and share your experiences in the next.